Hello everybody, Rix here. Hey, in this video I'm going to show you how you can take my RixCanDoIt Quick Transfer Paper, you know, the paper that I came up with that allows you to print with your laser printer and then glue it onto something, and then when it dries you can moisten, peel it off, and the image will come off the paper and go on the back of your mother-in-law or whoever it is you're gluing it onto, or what it is you're gluing it onto. Anyway, but in this video, for those of you who have inkjet printers, yeah, I've been reading the comments and I know you're like, hey, can I use my inkjet printer? Well, yeah, you can. I'm going to show you two different methods that I have figured out in my little bit of experimentation on how you can use your inkjet printer with this special transfer paper so that you can do transfers now with your inkjet printer. So don't go anywhere, stay right where you are, and we're going to get right into it. Okay, so I told you I was going to show you two different ways to print on this paper with your inkjet printer. And so I have two sheets of my quick transfer paper. You'll see something marked on the back that says print on the other side. And this is printer paper, but it's specially coated. You can get yourself a package of this paper. Down in the description area, you'll find a link. And I'll also include the links to the supplies that I'm going to be using in this video so that you can use this paper in an inkjet printer. Now we're going to do two different methods. So for both methods, we're going to start off doing the same exact thing. We're going to protect the coating that is on this paper that was designed for the laser, and we're going to protect it so we can use the inkjet. All right. So the first item that you're going to want to get is you're going to want to get some of this Krylon workable fixative, or you could probably use another brand. Now this one's almost empty because I did a lot of experimenting. You can hear the little ball making a lot of noise. But don't you worry, because I went out and bought more. You know, I'm not going to get crazy and soak the paper, but I want to mist it really well to make sure it's 100% or 101% completely protected. Okay, so here it goes. Now I'm just misting it. No big deal. You know what? I just realized, and you're probably going to realize if you do the same thing as me, lay down some protection. Here's some, oh, what do you call this? Baking sheet stuff, parchment paper. I'm going to put that down. Now let's get back to this. And I don't want to soak the paper. I just want to protect it. Just like it was a drawing, which is what I bought this for originally, for my drawings. But you want to get it on there so that this whole sheet is protected. So if you do just short spurts from, you know, a few inches away, you should be fine. Okay, let me go get my other can. This one's empty. And, oh yeah, sprays better too. Okay, so you just want light mist so that you don't soak the paper. Okay, but you do want it 100% protected. It dries really fast. Real simple to do, no big deal. Stop when you're comfortable or confident that you have protected the sheet completely, okay? So that the coating is now 100%, 101% protected. Okay? Very simple. You don't have to go 2-3 feet behind it or anything like that, like I do on other videos using the acrylic clear spray. This stuff kind of goes on somewhat dry anyway, so we can just stay right here and do it from here. Just don't go right up to it, all right? Use some common sense, but you can see where I am with my can, and I'm just, you know, giving it the spritz. Okay? All right. we're going to give our friend here some protection. It's always good to have some protection, you know what I'm saying? So, oh, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. Phew! You may want to do this in a well-ventilated area. Don't do what I'm doing because I'm crazy. And why am I crazy? Because I probably sniffed enough of this stuff spraying it in my art room without proper ventilation. Whew! Okay. Now, it dries really fast, but if you want to, grab yourself a hair dryer or one of these heat gunny things and just really quick. It takes absolutely no time at all, but this thing is going to be 101% dry. Alright? You know, just kind of gently touch it with your finger and you go, oh, that's dry. Where's the other one? Oh, that dried already just sitting over there. There's a little area here. Get that in there. Okay. Well, that feels good. Alright. See, that took, how much time was that? Nothing. Alright. And I just roll my fingers over it and I could feel that it is nice and dry. Alright. Now, we're going to get to the final phase here of coating this paper. Now, for this one here, what I'm going to use is something called PVA, Polyvinyl Alcohol. Alright? And you want to now go over this and just give it a nice thin coat of this polyvinyl alcohol-y thingy. Okay, I'm just kind of brushing off excess. Whenever I see excess, I want to get it off. Alright, there we go. No air bubbles are welcome. Next, I'm just going to take my little heat gun again. And this is going to take no time at all. I'm just going to evaporate all the alcohol-y thing here. And you want the surface to be dry before you print on it, of course. That only makes sense. Meanwhile, I'm going to turn on a clothes iron, just the medium heat, so that I can flatten this paper out before I stick it in my printer, because it won't feed if it's all curled up. So you'll see me do that in a second. Alright, so that looks like it's dry, but now you'll probably dry a little bit more after I do this next step. And that is, I'm going to put this down here on my ironing pad, put this Teflon sheet right on top, so I have some place to put my iron. And I just want to flatten this paper. I'm not trying to dry it. I'm just trying to flatten it so I could feed it into my printer. That's all I want to do, is just feed it into my printer. Okay. I have an Epson Artisan 1430 that is pretty finicky if the paper isn't relatively flat. Okay, so there you go. I now have a sheet of paper relatively flat. What I can do is I can try to press it from the other side just for extra giggles. This is another Teflon sheet. Is there a soft side of this? Okay, this is here. This like here. Okay. Alright, and I should have a flat sheet of paper, relatively flat. Okay, so you can see I have this glistening look to it. This thing is ready to be put in my inkjet. But before I do that, I'm going to mark it, okay, and I'm going to write on here PVA, so we remember that that's how we treated this. We did it with PVA, polyvinyl alcohol. Okay, now move that to the side. Let's get all this out of the way. Let's bring my parchment back. This one we are now going to do with something even cheaper than PVA, and that's a big old bottle of starch that I get at Walmart for like $2 or less. Really cheap. Okay, so let me get a container here. to put it in. So let's go ahead and just coat this with starch. Cheap, inexpensive, available everywhere. Walmart is where I got mine. Alright, now with the starch, what I like to do is provide it with a coarse crisscross pattern. So what that means is we've already gone this way, now we're going to go across, okay? So we're going to go this way. And this microscopically will give it a crisscross pattern because you have these streaks that the brush makes. And it gives a nice coarse surface to lay the ink down. And again, we're going to dry this. It'll dry really quick, just like the PVA dries real quick. It does take just a teeny bit more time to dry than the PVA, but not that much that it's definitely not a deal breaker. All right, and again, I'm going to just lay this down because it's all curled up and I want to flatten it with my iron. Alright, I don't think I need the iron anymore. Let's turn this, well, yeah, let's just do a little bit more. Still a little too wrinkly for my liking. So you may notice the difference between the starch and the PVA as far as how it wrinkles the paper as well. And that should help you to make a decision which one you want to fuss with. Alright, I'm going to turn the iron off. And there we go. And I can already tell that, you know, there is a difference. The PVA does seem to come a little flatter when you iron it. This is a little more like it's wet damaged from the starch. But other than that, it's fine. There's also a color difference slightly. It's got a slight green hue to it where this doesn't have anything. We're going to write starch so we know which is which. And now I'm going to go over to the inkjet printer and I'm going to print. Okay, I'm going to be doing this with one hand. I'm holding the camera with another. But what I'm going to do here is, this is the PVA sheet that we did. Alright, I can tell by the little green hue, but also it says PVA right there. And I'm going to stick this into my printer. And hopefully, without a bent corner, there we go. I might have to help feed it in. But I got this image of Spock here that I'm going to print. Now what you're going to want to do when you print, okay, is you're going to want to set the properties, and I go with best photo right there on my Epson, okay, that gives me the most inkish. And of course set it to plain white paper because it's just plain paper. Alright, so let's go ahead and click OK. And send it to the printer. Just make sure that it feeds in there. There we go. Now you can see this is my Epson. Okay, my Epson, and it's a Artisan 1430. This is an inkjet printer. It's got these inkjet cartridges in here. And look, it's printing. No problem. There's the image. Now if you try to do this on this paper without the little hack that we're doing in this video right now, I can guarantee you that this will not transfer, because what will happen is the paper will stick from the glue. But there you go. Okay, and now let's go ahead and put the other sheet in. This is the starch. Try to make sure it's right behind the little grabby arms. Now that noise is because the paper's curled up a little bit and the heads are hitting the edge of the paper. But as you can see, it's printing. Focus, focus. All right. I don't know why my focus is going a little wacky here for some strange reason. Look at that. Now that's a nice clean printout. Okay. Now we're going to go into the other room and we will look at them side by side. Okay, both printouts. Okay, I'm back in the studio and we're going to take a look. Let me get this iron out of the way before it burns my arm. We're going to take a look at these side by side here. Okay, and I do not see any difference in how these appear. So I'm going to give you kind of all the angles here, and then you can see the lighting is a little bit wonky in here, but to the naked eye they look pretty much identical. Pretty much. I don't know if it's in my imagination, but if I was to choose which one I happen to like better as far as visually, I would have to go with the Starch one personally, and it is the cheaper way to go. I get the impression that it might be like microscopically, minutely sharper, but then again, it could just be the thin air in here from breathing in the workable fixative. Okay, now after we've printed the image, either on the Starch or the PVA or however you're doing it, I would recommend that before you transfer it, now protect the image itself, because this is ink lying on top of this Starch or this PVA or whatever, and although it may be dry to the touch, once you start putting glue on it or whatever, something moist, it's going to have a tendency to smear the ink. It's not like the laser, which won't do that so much as the ink does. So inkjet, if you're going to use inkjet, we just have to do a few extra steps. So what I want to do is I'm going to spray this now. Now I can use my workable fixative again, or if I want to, I can just use my Krylon Crystal Clear spray. Either one. I have the workable fixative sitting here, and we were using it anyway. Maybe you don't want to order a bunch of cans of stuff, so we'll go ahead and use the workable fixative. That'll work. Okay, So anyway, let's just go ahead and spray. The nice thing I like about the workable fixative is that when we're spraying it on the paper with the coating on it before we print and all that, we don't have to stand back as far as we do with the Krylon. So that's the nice thing. It seems to be a drier type of spray, you know. But now that we've already printed, we don't really care. We can get up and close and personal. It doesn't matter. Okay, we've done protected it once already. But yeah, give it a nice spray just to make sure that it is nice and protected, so that when we put the glue all over it, there's less chance of smearing. Okay, so this is the one that only has workable fixative. It's the one that's all dotty and everything and faded. Let me get that out of the way. Okay, and this one here is the Starch, I believe. Yep, it's the Starch. We'll go ahead and we'll spray that, get that all nice and protected. I only need to protect the image, not the whole page. So I'm just going to go and spray that really nice. Let that dry. All right. And the one with the PVA, we'll do that one. Now, as far as glue is concerned, I recommend you use something like a Mod Podge. Usually I use gel medium, as you know in some of my videos. The problem with gel medium is the acrylic gel medium, for some reason, tends to react with some of these sprays. It reacts with the workable fixative. It reacts with the Krylon clear spray. It reacts with all those things. And it will cause the image to smear even though you've protected it. So use something like Mod Podge, which seems to have no effect whatsoever on the protective coating itself. Okay, so we'll get right into that. Okay, so I'm ready to go ahead and start gluing these to something. And I think what we'll do is we'll use these we'll use these 3 nice pre-sanded boards that I got on eBay or something, and that way we can make a nice comparison with all 3 of these. We'll put on a generous amount because it does soak into this board rather quickly, which will cause some dry areas to form before you get it onto the paper, and that's where you sometimes will get missing parts of the image. You don't want that. There's no dry spots anywhere. Okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slap it right on where I want this. Just press it on really good before I flip it over. Okay, then use your brayer. Looks like I got some glue on the back of this paper, which makes it difficult for the moisture to soak through. I'll have problems with this, so be careful not to get any of that glue on the back of your paper, because that just will stop moisture from getting through. Okay. Okay, if you never used this paper before, it's a good time to, if you're considering it, to pay attention to some of these tips. Notice how you start getting some bubbling or wrinkling. You don't want those. You want to make sure that this stays down. All right, you may have to do this for a little bit until the glue gets tacky enough to hold it down on its own. All right. And your surface needs to be smooth to have good contact. Get this out of the way, I don't need that either. Otherwise, what's this paper for? Okay. I know I'm not going to be saving these wood pieces here, especially if it doesn't come out good, because this is a test. All right, so as you can see, I got that pretty well flattened. Now we want to set that aside and let that dry. You can already see it soaking into the board when I put it up against the light and you look at the reflection. So I gotta hurry here. You'd be disappointed if there's like missing spots on your image. All right, then we're gonna put that right where we want it. Okay, press it down really good. Try to be careful not to slide all over the place. Just press it straight down and hold it as straight as possible. I know we have protection on there from smearing, but we don't need to force smearing. Okay, then we turn this over. Now I'm going to do what I did last time real quick here. Before I press, I'm just going to get rid of this excess because it gets in the way of flattening this thing. All right, now get all the four corners, good. There we go. So lots of things you have to keep in mind. See, I don't know if you can see that. Let me get the light just right. See that bump? That's a hard bit underneath there. Okay. And then see the shiny spots, like right there? Right there you go. See that? Right there. That's glue. And water will not absorb into the paper where you have glue back here. So be careful not to get any glue on the back of this paper. We'll set that aside to dry. Okay. Clean up a little bit. Now our last one. Any little wrinkle, I'm flattening it out. Got these little wrinkles because there's excess glue. Squeeze that out like so and give it a nice contact. No air bubbles, no wrinkles, nothing. Okay, all nice and pressed. All right, so we're gonna let this thoroughly dry and then we'll be back to moisten it and transfer. Okay, these are all completely dry now. I let it sit here on the desk for a few hours so I could take care of some other things. Anyway, let's start peeling and take a look at the results. And I'm going to start with just the workable fixative by itself. Now we already knew that the image had a bunch of dots to it. So I mean, I don't expect it to look any better than that, and possibly can look a lot worse. So let's take a look at this. This is water, and on a sponge brush to just get this soaked here. And you want to make sure the moisture soaks all the way into the paper. Okay, you should see it just slurp it up. And I can see it just really going into the paper there, which is good. And this is going to help release the paper. Okay. I think we probably have it now. Okay, then grab yourself a clean, dry paper towel. And all you want to do is just take off the excess moisture.
I find that it strengthens the paper a little bit so you get less tearing. Tearing's not bad, but if you don't want to do a lot of tearing, then, you know. And we'll just start in the corner and just kind of peel across.
As you can see, we had a 100% transfer because it's nothing on here.
But as I suspected, by using the workable fixative,
you'll notice that those dots are on there. See that? Okay. But it's a transfer.
and it does prove that you can print with an inkjet printer as long as you have protected the coating that's on the paper first. So these should come out pretty decent, I would think. This is the PVA. And again, we're going to make sure that we soak the back so we get a good release. Just like we did with the workable fixative by itself, it peeled off just like butter. Now notice something interesting here as we soak it, is you can actually start to see the image starting to show through. So no doubt we're getting soakage. You know, it doesn't hurt to do this for a whole minute just to make sure that it's absorbed. Now, what I can tell right off the bat is right here,
you'll notice it's kind of like dry looking, white, where everything else you can see through the paper. That's because I ended up getting glue on there, and that prevents water from going in there.
So, to prevent this thing from tearing, leaving a piece of paper here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to rub that spot to take the top layer of paper off, which has that glue, hopefully. And then I should be able to soak right through it. And sure enough, as you'll see,
that white went away
because I've removed the glue part. Now the water can go all the way through. And I'm assuming that there are no others. Well, there's a little bit in his hair right there that, but I'm just going to end up wiping. Yeah, see, the paper's stuck because there's no moisture getting there, but we'll be able to just peel that off. That's not going to be a problem. Okay, so now take your paper towel, take off the excess moisture, just like before. And I'd rather peel it than rub things off, so you want to be careful not to rub the inkjet off, which is what it looks like I'm about to do by doing it that way. Alright, so I'm going to end up doing this in a few shreds here. Let's try another corner here. Okay, get this off of the back here, it got stuck. And let's see, a little bit there, and a little bit there. Okay.
All right, now be careful with the inkjet. We're going to have to protect these, okay? Because you could still smear it if you
start rubbing this, the inkjet is going to start letting it smear. I could tell already that I can do that. Go ahead and clean this off a little bit. That came out pretty good.
Look at that. Now, remember,
This is inkjet, and using the PVA. Okay, this was the PVA. I'm going to write it on here. PVA, so we remember. As soon as it dries, I'm going to spray this to protect it so that it will be permanent and not, you can't smear it. That's the problem with inkjet, you know, it's more susceptible to smearing if you don't protect. Alright, I'm getting kind of OCD here, having to clean everything. Okay, there we go. Now, the starch one. And here we go. Okay, and let it all soak in. Swallow it up. All right, get another dry towel here. Okay, there we go. Just take up all the excess, and now we're just going to peel it from the corner. Okay, we're going to do it in several pulls, I guess. Alright, now I got some paper on here still stuck. Possibly due to there being glue on the back of the paper and it just didn't absorb the water. Or, now it looks like it absorbed now, so take up the excess. Be careful not to smear anything. Alright, that one looks dry, but where is my card? Here we go. I need some way of getting in here to start it. See, if it can't absorb the water because it's being blocked by glue that was spread on the back, then it makes it where you can't activate the release coating, but we're not having any problems here. Not too much anyway, just it scrapes off really easy. And one last one right here. There we go. You see, it just comes right off. Okay. All right. So any bits of paper on there, you can just clean it up. Be careful not to scrape the picture off like I just made a little scratch there. Okay, because remember, this is inkjet. This is susceptible to smearing unless you protect it. Alright, I'll clean the edges up here off camera so not to bore you guys. Okay, but this is starch.
There you go. INKJET Transfers. Okay, so you can use the RixCanDoIt paper to do inkjet, but you just need to take a couple of steps to allow you to print with the ink.
The reason why you can't use inkjet directly on the paper itself without pre-treating it with the workable fixative and the starch or the PVA is because the nature of inkjet is that it's wet. It's an ink. And that wetness of the ink is no different than taking water onto the paper, and that's going to ruin the coating because it's water that allows us to release it. All right, so that's the reason why we want to protect the paper before we start putting starch or anything else on there. And as you can see, just protecting it with workable fixative alone produces an inferior print. Okay, compared to these two, this is very inferior. That's why use the workable fixative to protect the coating on the paper first. It dries fast. You can spray it on and it doesn't mess up the coating, as you can see, obviously, that we sprayed it good, and it didn't disturb the coating that's already on the paper. And then when it had dried within a minute, it allowed you then to put on something wet, such as the starch or the PVA. And then when that dried, that created a surface that the inkjet can actually print normally to, as you can see here. This one, by the way, the starch I think is sharper than this one here, but you be the judge which one you like. The starch is also less expensive. You can get a whole bottle for like a couple of bucks, whereas the PVA is going to probably run you about $12 or something. Okay, but the thing is that you can print with your inkjet now, and you can transfer it. Now remember, this once it's dry like it is right now, I highly recommend that you either use your workable fixative or you use your clear coat, such as the Krylon clear coat, or I have this Mod Podge gloss clear acrylic sealer. You see, use any of those things and just come in there and spray it. This is going to come out nice and glossy. And then you are golden. And I'm getting high smelling this. So, whew, oh my goodness.
There you go, folks. Well, I hope you liked this
Video, and I hope you learned something. So yes, you can do transfers with inkjet using this paper if you just do those easy steps to prepare it first before you print. And then the transfer is the same as if you did laser. It doesn't matter.
Anyway, please give me a thumbs up if you like this, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Click the notification bell so you'll be informed of my upcoming videos when I upload them. And I thank you so much for your support and watching. See you in the next video. Bye.